There's a moment, a specific second, when a memory stops feeling like your own. Mine was on a Tuesday morning, 8:42 a.m., standing barefoot in my kitchen holding an invitation to my sister's wedding. Not a save the date, not a phone call, not even a text. Just a white embossed envelope, addressed to Miss Cassidy Bennett, not even Cassie, which is what everyone who actually knows me calls me, dropped through my mail slot like a passive-aggressive reminder that I'm not part of her world. But it wasn't just that she was getting married. It was the photo on the card. The one printed on thick matte paper, centerfold. It was of Leah and her fiancé, Parker, standing on the front porch of our childhood home. The house we grew up in. The house our parents sold 10 years ago. The house that, in every memory I have of us as kids, was a place she hated. Except now, here she was, in some kind of vintage-filtered Instagram fantasy, hand in hand with her future husband, grinning like she'd just inherited a Norman Rockwell painting. And the caption? Where it all began, childhood memories, family roots, and new beginnings. Had Bennett to be, shot back home. I stared at that caption for 10 straight minutes, because no one who actually grew up in that house would write that. Not Leah. She called that house a prison. She called our mom a walking guilt trip in a bathrobe. She once carved "Get Me Out" into the inside of her closet. But now she was printing it on cardstock like it was her origin love story. I sat down, right there on the cold tile, still in my pajamas, toast forgotten in the toaster, and felt this weird nausea bloom in my chest. Because it wasn't just the wedding I wasn't invited to help plan, or the fact that we hadn't spoken in 6 months. It was the realization that I no longer trusted my memories. And that's the thing about gaslighting. It's not always some cruel boyfriend whispering lies. Sometimes it's the sister who shares your DNA and slowly edits you out of your own life story. Leah and I were close once. Or at least, I thought we were. I'm 3 years younger. She was the golden child, the drama club star, the sensitive one. I was the tomboy, the quiet reader, the helper, the peacemaker. We weren't friends, exactly, but we had this rhythm. She'd sneak out the back window, and I'd cover for her. She'd cry in my bed after a fight with Dad, and I'd pretend I was asleep so she didn't feel embarrassed. And when she left for college, I thought maybe she'd look back and realize I'd been there all along. She didn't. She went to NYU, got into costume design, posted curated photos of skyline views and brunches, liked my Instagram posts occasionally, but never called. Meanwhile, I stayed behind, took care of Mom when she got sick, helped pack up the house, drove 3 hours back from college every weekend for 6 months when Dad had surgery. No one asked me to. I just did it. That's who I am. And when Leah showed up at Mom's funeral a year later, wearing white, like she was some kind of saint, she cried louder than anyone, gave a speech about our strong, beautiful mother, and then disappeared before cleanup. That was 4 years ago. We've spoken exactly 5 times since, all initiated by me. All one-word replies, except one. When I texted her, last year, asking if she wanted to go through Mom's storage unit together. She replied, "You can just toss anything you don't want. I don't need reminders of that place." I never responded. But now, she's posing in front of it like it's the symbol of her new life? I should have thrown the invitation away, but instead, I flipped it over. Read the fine print. Ceremony, Hillwood Gardens. Reception, Bennett Family Estate. Attire, formal. Please RSVP by March 1st. Bennett Family Estate. What estate? We grew up in a 3-bedroom ranch with a busted AC and a backyard full of crabgrass. I opened my laptop, searched Bennett Family Estate, Hillwood, and there it was. A rental property. Some rustic farmhouse turned venue for weddings. Leah had booked it for 3 days. I stared at the photos on the listing. Reclaimed wood beams. Gardens strung with Edison bulbs. Faux fireplace mantle with fake family portraits staged for photo ops. She was rewriting us. Rebuilding a life that never existed. And it wasn't just artistic license. It was erasure. I closed the laptop, opened my texts, typed, "Leah, I got the invitation. Why are you pretending our childhood was something it wasn't?" I didn't expect a response, but she replied in under 2 minutes. "Cass, it's just a theme. It's not that deep. Can we not make this about you for once?" My hands went cold. I typed back, I'm not coming. Not because I'm bitter, but because you've made it clear there's no room for the truth at your wedding. Good luck. I hovered over send, then deleted it, because it didn't matter what I said. To her, I was already the villain in her story, but I needed someone to know. So I did something I hadn't done since high school. I opened my notes app, started writing every memory I could still claim as mine. The first time Leah made me question my own memory, I was 16. She came home from college for Thanksgiving and accused me of throwing out her senior prom dress. I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. I'd helped pack it into one of the bins in the attic that summer. But she insisted. Told Mom it was just like Cass to get jealous and toss something important. Mom looked at me, disappointed but exhausted, and didn't say a word. I searched the attic that night, found the bin, found the dress, brought it down. She smiled. Oh, so you did find it. Thanks, Cass. And that was it. No apology. Just a subtle shift in dynamic that never shifted back. After that, she'd do it constantly. Lose something and blame me. Tell stories at family gatherings where I was the needy one, the clingy little sister, the tattletale. None of it was true, but over time she said it so often that even I started wondering. Did I cling? Did I make her life harder? Mom never corrected her. Dad was too checked out to care. So I shrunk, got quieter, learned to pick my battles. I didn't RSVP to the wedding, but I didn't throw the invitation away either. I kept it on the counter, looked at it every time I walked into the kitchen. Until 2 weeks later, when I got a Facebook message from someone named Maya. Her profile picture was a selfie with Leah. Her message? Hey, Cassie, I know this is random, but I'm helping Leah with wedding stuff and I found something weird. Can I ask you something? I replied. Sure. She sent a photo. It was of a letter, handwritten, on yellowing notebook paper. Dear Leah, I'm sorry I ruined everything. I know I always made things worse. You're the only one Mom ever loved and I couldn't handle it. It went on. A full page of self-blame. Apology. Guilt. Signed, Cassidy. Except I never wrote it. I stared at it, my stomach turning. Where did you find this? I typed. In one of the old memory boxes. She said you wrote it when you were a teen. I didn't. I know my handwriting. That wasn't it. It was Leah's. She forged a letter to make me look unhinged, and she'd kept it, like evidence, like a backup plan. I called Maya, voice shaking. She answered on the second ring. Maya, I need you to be honest with me. Did Leah ever say anything to you about our relationship growing up? Long pause. I mean, she said you had a rough time, that you resented her, that you used to lie to get attention. I couldn't breathe. She went on. Honestly, I never thought much about it. She said you were just really emotional and that it was hard growing up with you. That's why she didn't want you in the bridal party. It clicked. She'd been preemptively poisoning the well, making sure no one believed me before I ever opened my mouth. I whispered, I never wrote that letter. Silence. Then Maya said, Oh my God. Maya stayed quiet on the line for a long time. All I could hear was her breathing, this weird, shallow kind of breath like she was trying to keep her own heart from panicking. I didn't blame her. I was doing the same thing. When she finally spoke, her voice was hushed, like she was afraid Leah would hear through the phone. Cassie, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. I closed my eyes. My hands were cold again. You don't have to say anything, I said quietly. You didn't know. But Maya wasn't finished. Can I show you something else? I didn't answer, but she took the silence as permission. A second later, a ping. She'd sent another image. This time, a screenshot. It was a Notes app entry. A long one. The top read, Draft. Maid of honor toast. For Cassie. Just in case. That alone made my heart stutter. I scrolled down. Cassie has always been unpredictable. If you knew her growing up, you know how sensitive she was. But she loved hard, in her own way. Sometimes a little too hard. She'd write me letters, leave me little gifts. I never knew how to handle her emotions. My skin crawled. The entry went on, spinning this bizarre narrative of me as some obsessive little sister who'd made Leah's life complicated, who'd blurred boundaries, who had a tendency toward drama. It was elegant, subtle, The kind of manipulation you'd never clock unless you lived it. I stared at the last line. But I've always forgiven her. Because that's what sisters do. Forgiven me? For what? Being the only one left to take care of Mom? For covering Leah's lies for years? For not speaking up when she twisted every family memory into something unrecognizable? I didn't realize I was crying until I heard my own breath hitch. Cassie? Maya's voice broke in gently. Are you okay? Yeah, I lied. But I wasn't. I was humiliated, angry, exhausted, and worst of all, gaslit. Again. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate campaign to cast me as unstable, emotional, dramatic, and she'd written an entire speech just in case I tried to defend myself. That wasn't just pettiness. That was strategy. Maya spoke again, hesitant. I'm really sorry. I just thought you should know. I don't want to be part of something that rewrites people. That phrase, rewrites people, hit me in the stomach. You're the first person who's ever said that out loud, I whispered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my phone face down on the nightstand like it was some kind of landmine. My brain kept looping back to one thing. Why? Why would Leah do this? Why go through such elaborate lengths to erase me? To turn me into a ghost in her own story? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized she wasn't erasing me. She was using me. My existence, twisted and distorted, made her narrative more compelling. She was the elegant bride who triumphed over a difficult family. The misunderstood artist who overcame emotional chaos. The girl who came from dysfunction and turned it into something beautiful. Her entire aesthetic, vintage family home, handwritten letters, emotional depth, it was curated, and I was her set dressing. But now she had a problem. Because I wasn't staying silent anymore. 2 days later, I posted a single photo on Instagram. It was a Polaroid. Me and Leah at ages 9 and 12. She was in full Halloween witch costume. I was beside her, wearing a cardboard robot suit I'd made myself, grinning ear to ear. The caption read, "Remember when I made this from an Amazon box and duct tape? I carried you home after you tripped in the neighbor's yard. You cried the whole way. We were a mess, but we were real." I didn't tag her, didn't mention the wedding, didn't allude to anything recent. But people started commenting. I remember this day. Y'all were so cute back then. Cass, you always had the best costumes. Wait, is this that sister? And then, a DM. From someone I hadn't seen since high school. Jamie, Leah's old best friend. Hey, so I saw your post, and I just need to say something. I always thought the way Leah talked about you was weird. I blinked at the message. What do you mean? Like, I don't know. She'd always tell people you were fragile or a little off. And back then, I believed her. But you were always nice. You helped me with my physics final. You brought snacks to rehearsals. And honestly, she was the dramatic one, not you. My throat tightened. Jamie continued. It's been eating at me. I think she's built this whole world where you're the problem. And no one's questioned it because she's so good at making it sound reasonable. I sat in silence, rereading her words. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. Other people saw it too. They just never told me. Until now. The next morning, I got an email. From Leah. Subject line, please stop. The body was short. Cassidy, I'm asking you. Don't ruin this for me. I know you're hurt. But this is my wedding. Can you please just let it be what it is? There was no apology, no acknowledgement, just a plea for silence. I stared at the screen, then typed back. I'm not the one rewriting history. You are. I hit send. She didn't respond. The wedding was 1 week away, and I wasn't planning to go, but I couldn't stop thinking about the letter, the fake one, the speech draft, the narrative she'd built so carefully over the years. I opened the box in my closet, the one labeled Mom, personal. Inside were photo albums, a few cards, old letters. One envelope stood out. It was addressed to Leah, in Mom's handwriting. Unopened. I hesitated, then peeled it open. Leah, I know you always felt like I favored Cassie. I didn't. I just knew she wouldn't ask for anything. You both hurt in different ways. I wish I'd been better at helping you deal with yours. I stopped. Tears blurred the ink. I know you think I didn't see you, but I did. And I loved you, even when you pulled away. I just didn't know how to reach you." My hands were trembling. Mom had seen it. She'd seen the distance, the pulling away, the competition Leah had created out of love, and she hadn't stopped it. But she'd known. I took a picture of the letter, saved it to my phone. Then I called someone I hadn't talked to in years. My Aunt Julie. Julie was Mom's younger sister, a therapist, the only person in our family who ever called Leah out on her behavior. She picked up on the second ring. "Cassie? Hi. Do you have a minute?" "Of course." And I told her everything. The fake letter, the speech, the email, the gaslighting. She listened without interrupting once. When I finished, there was a pause. Then, "I believe you. I always have." I broke, sobbing into the phone like I was 10 years old again. She waited, then said softly, "You know what Leah's doing, right?" "Yeah," I whispered. "She's building a brand." "Exactly. And you don't have to tear it down. You just have to stop playing your assigned role." I didn't go to the wedding, but I did do something else. I posted a thread on Twitter, a long one, with photos, screenshots, and the letter from Mom. I didn't name names, but people figured it out. This is why I always side-eye curated wedding aesthetics. Gaslighting is so much more insidious when it's wrapped in soft filters and lace. Girl, you deserve better than to be someone's tragic backdrop. It went viral. Leah never responded publicly. But 3 days after the wedding, I got another email. No subject line, no greeting. Just one sentence. "You've always wanted to ruin me." I read it 3 times, then deleted it. Because she was wrong. I never wanted to ruin her. I just wanted to exist. 3 weeks after Leah's wedding, I found myself wandering the aisles of Target in the middle of a Thursday, holding a box of dish pods I didn't need and pretending like I wasn't quietly unraveling in public. I'd slept maybe 5 hours in the last 3 nights, all of them interrupted by these half-dreams where I was chasing Leah through our old house, barefoot, trying to catch her before she locked herself in a room and threw away the key. When I got to self-checkout, I looked at my reflection in the screen. Pale, puffy eyes, tense jaw. I didn't look like myself. I looked like someone trying to carry 1,000 invisible pounds. The box of dish pods beeped. $14.49. I almost didn't swipe my card. Because what was the point? I didn't even have a dishwasher. That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced down. A DM from Maya. "Hey. I know you said you didn't want updates, but I think you should see this." She sent a link. I tapped it. It was a new post on Leah's Pinterest wedding board. The photo was artfully staged. A woman standing on a wooden bridge in a flowy white gown, surrounded by autumn leaves. Caption: "Healing the past, starting over, with grace." But it wasn't the caption that got me. It was the tags. #recovery. #our family drama. #estrangement. Starting fresh. Only. Love. Now it was performative. Like she'd read my thread and spun it into content. My jaw clenched. I typed to Maya. "She's making herself the victim." Maya replied, "I know, I'm so sorry. It's like she turned the whole thing into her aesthetic." And it hit me. Leah wasn't upset that I'd told the truth. She was thrilled. Because now she had a narrative. She'd turned emotional chaos into brand currency, into growth, into content pillars. I wasn't a sister to her. I was a character in her origin story. Later that night, Aunt Julie called. "I read her post," she said. "She thinks this is redemption." I laughed, dry, bitter. "Yeah, except she never actually repented." Julie was quiet a second, then, "What do you want to do?" I blinked. No one had asked me that yet. Everyone else had focused on Leah. Her feelings, her image, her wedding. What I wanted hadn't factored in once. But now, faced with the question, I realized I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to expose her further. I just wanted the truth, documented. Not for the internet, for me. So I started writing again. Not a thread, not a post, a document. A full archive of our childhood. Every gaslit moment, every lie, every manipulation, every time I was made to feel like the problem. I wrote for 6 hours straight that first night, then the next, and the next. I labeled each section. The letter. Senior prom dress incident. The Halloween night she took credit for my costume. The time she told her RA I was codependent. I included screenshots, photos, voice memos I'd saved from Mom. It wasn't revenge. It was evidence. Not to show anyone, but to remind myself that I hadn't imagined it, that it happened, that I was real. A week later, I got an email from a woman named Brooke. Subject: Sister Stories. Body: Hi Cassie, I found your thread through a friend and just wanted to say, same. My sister used to tell people I made up my mental health diagnosis for attention. She staged a wellness post last month and tagged me in it like we were close. We're not. You're not alone. She included a link to a blog post she'd written. It was raw, messy, angry, and honest. I replied, "Thank you. I needed this more than I realized." Then I got another, and another. Women telling me about sisters who stole boyfriends, lied about abuse, turned family against them, rewrote memories, all under the guise of healing and growth. I started saving their stories, making a folder. Silent sisters. The ones whose side doesn't make the wedding speech. The ones labeled bitter, or unstable, or too much. Not all of them had proof. Not all of them needed it. Their voices were enough. One morning, I opened my phone to a new notification. Leah had tagged me. On Instagram. My heart dropped. The post was a photo of her holding a framed picture of us as kids. The caption read, "No matter what, I'll always love my sister. I forgive you." My hands went ice cold. I forgive you. There it was again. The narrative. The suggestion that I'd done something wrong. That I was lashing out. That she was the bigger person. My stomach turned. I clicked remove tag, then messaged her. "Leah, stop using me for your brand. This isn't grace, it's manipulation." She replied within minutes. "I'm just trying to move on. I don't know why you're still stuck in the past." Stuck in the past. I laughed. Actually laughed. Out loud. In my kitchen. I typed, "You built your entire wedding on a fictional version of our past. You posed in front of the house you said you hated. You forged a letter to make me look unstable. Don't talk to me about moving on." She never replied. The next few weeks were quiet. I kept writing. Kept receiving stories from other women. Kept documenting my own. One day, I went to the library and printed out the whole archive, 200 pages. I put it in a binder. Labeled it my version. It wasn't for court, or press, or even family. It was for me. So if I ever started to doubt again, if I ever felt crazy, I could open it and remember. I didn't make this up. It happened. I survived. Then, in mid-December, something strange happened. A letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a single sheet. "Cassie, I read everything. I don't agree with how you did it, but I understand why. I never wanted to make you feel small. I just didn't know how else to be seen. I'm sorry. Leah." No apology for specifics. No ownership of the letter, or the speech, or the social media stunts. But for Leah, this was an earthquake. I stared at it. Part of me wanted to rip it up. Another part, the younger version of me still curled up in our childhood bedroom, wanted to cry. Instead, I folded it back up. Put it in the binder. A footnote. That Christmas, I didn't hear from her. No calls, no cards. But I felt lighter. I cooked dinner for myself, lit a candle, watched snow fall through the window. And I didn't cry. Not once. Because I'd finally stopped chasing a version of her that never existed, and started remembering me. Winter passed slowly, like the whole world had hit a dimmer switch. I didn't go home for New Year's. Didn't make resolutions. Didn't post a recap on Instagram. Instead, I bought a new set of bedsheets. Fresh white, soft cotton. My first grown-up purchase in a long time that felt like a beginning, not a fix. I'd been spending so much of my life trying to rewrite Leah's edits that I didn't realize I'd stopped writing my own story. That changed in January. It started small. An essay I wrote for myself, titled The Ghost Sister. I never meant to share it, but one afternoon, I uploaded it to Medium under a pseudonym, just to see what would happen. Within days, it spread. Dozens of comments. This hit way too close. "I'm crying. I thought I was the only one. I'm saving this forever." And in the middle of the chaos, an email from an editor. "Are you interested in expanding this into a series?" I stared at the screen, floored. I'd been the ghost, the edit, the background. Now I was being asked to narrate. I said yes, and suddenly, I had a reason to wake up again. A few weeks later, I was on the phone with Aunt Julie, pacing my apartment in socks and an old hoodie, reading her the second draft of my essay collection. She was quiet through most of it, then finally said, "Cass, can I tell you something you might not like?" I tensed, braced myself. Of course. You're not just writing about Leah. You're writing about something bigger. About how women like you, the quiet ones, the peacemakers, get rewritten all the time. I blinked, sat down on the edge of the couch. I never saw it like that. Because you've spent your whole life trying not to take up space. That hit hard, because it was true. Even in writing these stories, I was still framing myself around Leah. Her actions, her betrayals, her narrative. But what if I didn't need her name in the title? What if my story could stand alone? In March, I gave my first live reading. It was a small event, women's storytelling night at a coffee shop downtown. I wore jeans and a thrifted sweater. My palms were sweating. But when I stepped up to the mic and looked out at that room, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Faces. Waiting. To hear me. Not Leah's version. Not the edited script. Mine. I read the section called "The Letter That Wasn't Mine." When I got to the part about Maya finding the fake note, the forged guilt trip in my name, I paused and said out loud, "For a long time, I thought the scariest thing was being erased. But it turns out, what's scarier is realizing you let someone else write your life while you stayed quiet." The room went still. Someone in the back whispered, "Damn." And I felt it. The shift. That moment where the ghost finally becomes a person. After that night, things moved fast. The essays turned into a pitch. The pitch turned into a book deal. Not big money, but real. Real enough for my name to be on something that wasn't a footnote. I didn't tell Leah. Not out of pettiness. Out of peace. Because for once, she wasn't part of this. Then one night in early May, I got a text from an unknown number. "You wrote about me." No name. But I knew. My stomach flipped. I replied, "I wrote about me." There was a pause. Then 3 little dots. Then they vanished. I stared at the screen for 5 minutes. Then finally, one more message. "I'm not the villain you think I am." I didn't reply. Because it wasn't about villains. It was about truth. And hers wasn't the only version anymore. In June, Leah's husband, Parker, followed me on Instagram. I almost blocked him, but curiosity won. I clicked his profile. He'd posted a photo last week. A quote graphic. "If you're not the villain in someone's story, you're not living with honesty." No caption. The comments were off. I stared at it for a long time. Was that about her? Or me? Did it even matter? By summer, the book had a title. Shadowlight. Stories from the Quiet Sister. The publisher asked if I wanted to use a pen name. I said no. Cassidy Bennett deserved to be on the cover. When the announcement went live, Maya texted me. "Just pre-ordered. So proud of you." Then Jamie. Then Brooke. The Silent Sisters group chat lit up with celebration emojis. We weren't invisible anymore. And yet, one message haunted me. From someone I didn't expect. Dad. We hadn't spoken in over a year. Not since I stopped reaching out first. But he emailed me. Subject: heard about the book. Body: your mother would have been proud, even if it makes Leah upset. I sat with that for a long time. Because Dad wasn't sentimental. He wasn't a writer. He was a quiet man who'd let women run the emotional household while he paid the bills and kept out of the way. But something in that message felt different. So I called him. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hi, Cass." His voice cracked. And just like that, I was 8 years old again, waiting for someone to notice I was still in the room. "Hi, Dad." We talked for 2 hours. Not about Leah. Not really. About Mom. About her last days. About the stories I didn't know. At the end, he said, "I think I let a lot of things slide that I shouldn't have. I didn't protect you." Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "You still can," I said. And I meant it. August. The book was printed. I held the first copy in my hands on a Thursday morning, 11:16 a.m., barefoot in my kitchen. The same place I'd stood months ago holding that wedding invitation like it was a punch to the gut. This time, I was holding my own words. The cover was soft matte. My name in white serif. I flipped to the dedication page. It read, "For the girls who were erased, edited, or called too much, you are not a footnote." I closed the book, held it to my chest, and cried. The book came out on a Tuesday. It was raining, the kind of soft, apologetic rain that made the city feel like it had slipped under a blanket. I woke up at 6:03 a.m., not because of an alarm, but because I couldn't sleep the night before. It felt like the morning before a final exam, or maybe a court date. Some day where something would be decided, and you wouldn't know the results until much later. Except this wasn't about grades or guilt. This was about being heard. I didn't check reviews. I didn't refresh Goodreads or Amazon. Instead, I made tea, sat on the edge of my bed, opened the book to page 1 and started reading it aloud to myself, word for word, just to remember, I did this. It's real. At 8:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. I thought about ignoring it, but I looked anyway. Leah. Her name on my screen made my pulse stutter. It was a text. First one in 2 years. Saw your book. Didn't think you'd actually do it. That was all. No congratulations, no curiosity, no apology, just accusation. I typed a dozen different responses, deleted each one. Then I finally sent. You spent our whole lives trying to make sure I'd never speak. You don't get to act surprised that I finally did. She didn't reply. The book wasn't a bestseller, not in the flashy viral way people dream of, but it mattered. Book clubs started reading it, podcasts started quoting it. One local college even emailed me about teaching it in a sociology course on family dynamics and female identity. And the messages, God, the messages. Hundreds of women, pouring out memories they'd buried for years. My sister told everyone I was the problem when she was the one who hit me. Reading your book felt like opening my own diary, one I didn't know I'd written. I was the peacekeeper, the overlooked one. Thank you for making space for us. Even some men messaged me. I watched my mom become invisible in her own home. I wish she'd had your words. It was healing in a way I hadn't expected, but also exhausting, because every story cracked something open. One night, I stayed up reading until 3:47 a.m., weeping into a towel on the floor of my bathroom, overwhelmed by the weight of all these silent sisters now whispering to me. But I never regretted it. Not once. 6 months later, I was asked to speak at a women's conference in Chicago. Main stage. Topic: Narrative ownership after gaslighting. I almost said no, not because I didn't believe in it, but because I was scared. Scared that Leah would be watching. Scared I'd mess it up. Scared that standing in front of hundreds of people would somehow crack the illusion I'd built of being strong now. But Aunt Julie called the morning the offer came in. Cass, do you remember that time when you were 10 and you wrote a school report on Harriet Tubman and the teacher read it aloud because it made everyone cry? I laughed. Vaguely. I do. You've always had a voice, baby, even when no one listened. So I said yes, and I stood on that stage, trembling in heels I'd borrowed from a friend, reading an essay titled, "The Sister I Was Supposed to Be." When I finished, the audience stood. Not clapping for drama, clapping for recognition. I stepped off the stage into a hug from a woman I didn't know, sobbing into my shoulder. And for the first time since I was a kid, I believed, really believed, that my story had value. A month after the conference, I was back home in my apartment when the doorbell rang. Wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, heart skipping. It was Leah. No makeup, dressed in plain jeans and a hoodie, hair pulled back in a bun that looked like she hadn't slept. We stared at each other. I couldn't speak. My throat closed around 1,000 unsaid things. She finally said, "I read the book. All of it." I stepped aside, wordless. She came in. We sat across from each other on the couch, legs curled like strangers trying not to start a war. She didn't cry. I didn't either. She just looked tired. Honest, maybe, for the first time in years. "I don't know how to apologize for all of it," she said. "Then don't," I replied quietly. "Don't perform." She blinked, nodded. "I used you," she admitted. "Because it was easier than facing myself. You were the mirror I didn't want. And instead of breaking the mirror, I twisted it." That sentence stuck in the air like incense smoke. Truth finally lit. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't. But I said, I believe you. Then she said something that surprised me more than anything. You should have been the one with the stage all along. You were always watching, always writing. I was just louder. That was the moment. The real twist. Not an apology, not forgiveness. Recognition. She didn't stay long. She didn't try to fix us. We didn't hug. But as she left, she looked over her shoulder and said, I hope you keep writing. I won't get in the way again. And for once, I believed her. It's been 2 years since the book launched. Leah and I don't talk much. We send cards on birthdays. Sometimes a thinking of you text on Mother's Day. But we no longer pretend. And there's peace in that. I've published 2 more books. The third is coming this fall. It's about names, labels, the way language gets used to box women in. It's called Too Much and Not Enough. I've spoken in libraries, at conferences, in schools. Women stop me in airports to say thank you. One brought me her childhood journal and said this was the only place I could speak, until now. And at every reading, I end the same way. To the sisters who were told they were bitter, broken, or beyond redemption, your story is yours, and you don't need permission to tell it. Last week I got a package in the mail. No note, just a frame. Inside was the Polaroid of us on Halloween. Leah as the witch, me as the robot. But this time someone had written across the bottom, in careful black marker, we were messy, but we were real. I hung it in my hallway. Not because I've forgiven her fully, but because it's true. We were real, and I refuse to be edited again. What do you think? Was Leah truly remorseful? Or just trying to reclaim control again? Leave your thoughts in the comments. This one's going to spark a lot of debate. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.